The night dressed itself in velvet. Candles stood like quiet witnesses, steady flames reflecting in crystal glasses I polished that afternoon. The dining room, our dining room, was staged like a magazine spread. Linen pressed, chargers aligned, the old mahogany gleaming after 3 coats of lemon oil and patience. I had cooked the ribeye low and slow, finished in a cast-iron pan, a hint of rosemary at the end so the room would smell like memory instead of money. They arrived with the kind of laughter people practice in their cars, too bright, too polished, ready to perform. He loved them for it. The men loosened their ties as if work were heavy and virtue were optional. The women slipped off their shoes under the table because heels don't lie. Someone asked about our anniversary. Someone else asked about profits. No one asked if I was tired. From the kitchen doorway, I watched him tell my story like it belonged to his voice. He raised his glass and the chandelier scattered light around his smile. "Marriage is a long joke," he said, tapping the rim with his ring. "Ours? The punchline always walks in late." The table laughed like I wasn't 2 steps away holding the platter that fed them. Maybe I should have been shocked, but humiliation ages fast. When you've worn enough of it, it fits like a familiar coat. I breathed in the heat of the steak, the rosemary, the butter, the metal of the tray cooling under my fingertips. I thought of the first contract I closed in a stale conference room while he texted "good luck" and went golfing. I thought of every vendor who shook his hand and then looked to me for the actual answers. I thought of the way respect sounds when it finally lands on your name. I walked in. The room tightened. Silver chimed against porcelain. I set the platter beside him so gently the juices didn't dare move. "You don't need to rehearse the ending," I said, folding my napkin until the monogram faced me, not him. "I'm here now." He laughed, but it broke in the middle. "Babe, don't be sensitive. It's a joke." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm done with it." Someone tried to change the subject. New cars, new watch, new lie, but their words hung in the air like clothes that didn't fit anymore. I looked around the table and saw what I needed to see: paper-thin alliances, borrowed confidence, mouths that knew how to drink but not how to speak truth. I wasn't angry. Anger would have offered him too much of me. I was precise. I placed the folded napkin between us like a contract terminated. The room listened the way rooms only listen to women when they sense something expensive is about to leave. He reached for my wrist, a reflex more than a choice. I stepped aside and watched his hand close on air. "Dinner's served," I said softly. "So is clarity." I turned toward the hallway mirror and met my own eyes. Steady, unshaken, older than I felt yesterday, and stronger than I'd ever been allowed to admit. I didn't rush. I didn't explain. Explanations are for people still asking permission. Behind me, their laughter stalled, gears grinding, charm leaking. Ahead, the staircase waited like a runway. Some jokes end with applause. Mine ends with a door. Subscribe to our channel. This helps our work reach more people. The hallway felt longer than it had that morning, as if the house were testing my resolve with extra steps. I climbed them without touching the rail. My hands needed to be free. Halfway up, I heard a burst of laughter fade to an uncertain murmur, the sound of people realizing they'd applauded the wrong line. I didn't turn back. I have learned that dignity lives in forward motion. Our bedroom waited with its curated stillness. Pale curtains, a rug that swallowed footsteps, the faint citrus trace of his cologne clinging to the air like a memory that won't wash out. I sat on the edge of the bed we chose together, and for the first time, I felt the mattress tilt to my side. It was almost funny how the furniture finally shifted the way the marriage never did. On the dresser, the wedding photo leaned inside a silver frame. 2 people in pressed clothes and borrowed hope. He looked certain. I looked capable. I once thought those were the same thing. I picked up the frame, let the glass chill my fingers, and set it face down with a softness that surprised me. Let some things sleep. The old Samsonite sat in the closet where I kept my actual history. I pulled it down. The zipper stuck at first, as if the case knew it was about to be drafted into something solemn, and then slid smoothly, like a door opening after years of silence. I packed the essentials not for escape, but for arrival: passport, laptop, ledger, USB drives labeled with a neat hand that no one ever credited. I added a pair of low heels, the kind you can stand in while changing the terms of your life. Downstairs, a spoon tinked against a glass. He was trying to retake the room with charm. He never understood that charm is a currency you can't counterfeit in front of a ledger's woman. I checked the time. If I left now, I could reach the hotel before the lobby shifted from polite to lonely. I've never been afraid of lonely. Loneliness, unlike humiliation, tells the truth. I paused at the nightstand. There lay the little leather notebook where I keep numbers that matter. Net 30s that really mean net 45. Clients who pay on time because they fear respect. Salaries adjusted without asking permission. The running total of how many times I made him look like a leader while I did not look like a fool. I added one line. Tonight, ending begins. He knocked lightly. My name, soft through the door, as if volume could dress cruelty. Can we talk? He asked. We had years, I said, my voice level. You used them to perform. I know exactly what you were. I lifted the suitcase handle. It felt lighter than it should, which is how truth feels when it finally gets to carry itself. On my way out, I took nothing I couldn't justify to a judge or to my own soul. The house could have the furniture. I would take the facts. I walked to the top of the stairs. The laughter had thinned to whispers, then to the unease that follows a misread room. He stood at the bottom, looking up with a smile he wore for investors, a smile that assumes you've already said yes. I offered him the only thing that still belonged to us both, a clear sentence. Don't follow me. And then I moved, steady as a clock striking the hour it was built for. When a door becomes a mirror, step through and meet yourself. Some people leave with clothes. I leave with evidence. On the vanity, a velvet pouch held the flash drives I'd labeled over the years. Client origins, margins true, staff bonuses, vendor renog. It's funny how men like him trust the woman who keeps the receipts until the receipts remember how to speak. I slid them into the Samsonite next to my passport and the ledger with the coffee ring I never scrubbed off, my private watermark. The closet light hummed, a thin electric buzz that steadied my breath. I reached for the fireproof envelope tucked beneath a shoebox and pulled out copies of board minutes, BD pipelines, scanned invoices with the small corrections only I ever caught. A decimal that wandered. A signature that arrived too prompt to be anything but rehearsed. I am not a paranoid woman. I am a prepared one. My phone chimed. A text from my attorney with a single question mark. She knows me the way a compass knows north, without judgment, only direction. I typed back, now. She sent an address and the promise of a pot of coffee. I have never walked into her office as a victim. I don't intend to start. I added my grandmother's ring to the inside pocket, the one with a setting worn smooth by time and prayer. I have always believed in practical altars, documents, dates, balances that reconcile, the sacred lives in order. Another text, this one from a number I recognized but did not save, one of his friends. He's had too much, it said, as if volume could excuse contempt. Don't make a scene. I smiled, a small, private thing with no warmth in it. They never expect the quiet ones to be the storm system. I printed 3 records from my password manager, login histories, IP addresses, a map of late-night entries that did not belong to me. He had been wandering digitally where he couldn't stand in daylight. I slid the pages into a folder labeled simply Chronology. Judges love a straight line. Before zipping the case, I took one last sweep of the room for the things women are told to leave behind. The good pen, the extra phone charger, the kind of bra that fits like armor. We are always expected to travel light. I have learned to travel exact. At the doorway, I paused. Humiliation likes to make you forget what you own. I checked my pocket for the small brass key to my office desk, the top drawer that sticks unless you press slightly on the left. Inside is a habit, a daily printout of the bank statements. Numbers don't lie. They just wait patiently for you to read them. I closed the suitcase. The zipper kissed metal. That sound soothed me more than any apology could. Down the hall, I passed the gallery of framed certificates, his diplomas with gold-embossed calligraphy, my industry awards with type that never seems to get the font budget. I touched mine lightly. Paper can't hug you back, but it can hold you up. At the stairs, I adjusted the handle to the shortest notch and took my first step downward into air I recognized as mine. If he wanted to rewrite history, he should have learned how to hold a pen. Bring what they count on you to forget, and you'll never be empty-handed. He waited at the foot of the stairs, hands open the way men pose when they want to look harmless. Behind him, our guests had become furniture, expensive still, watching. The women's faces folded into concern, the men's faces smoothed into neutrality. People mistake neutrality for wisdom when what they really mean is distance. "Let's not do this in front of everyone," he said, voice low, as if maturity were measured in decibels. "We already did," I answered, and stepped onto the foyer rug I spent months hunting at estate sales. My suitcase wheels rolled over its pattern of small, repeated diamonds. Pattern recognizes pattern. "Babe," he tried again, and the word shivered between us like a wire about to snap. "You're overreacting." "I'm correcting," I said. "There's a difference." Our guests found sudden fascinations: a bracelet clasp, a phone screen, the ceiling. One woman, she always wore sympathy like a statement piece, stood. "Maybe we should give them a minute," she offered. "You've had years," I told him. "Give me the door." He reached for the suitcase handle. I tilted it toward me in one clean motion and watched his fingers open and close on air. I am not a violent woman, but I do enjoy precision. "Come on," one of the men said to him, half laughing, half pleading. "Don't let your ego get audited at the table." There it was, the entertainment they came for. Men will turn even a woman's decision into a performance if the lighting is good. He leaned closer. "You're making a mistake," he murmured, breath warm with the kind of whiskey you buy when you want other men to think you know yourself. "I used to," I said, and angled my body just enough that he had to step back or touch me. He stepped back. Consent is a choreography the clumsy always fail. "For what it's worth," the sympathetic woman whispered as I passed. "I always thought you deserved better." "Worth has a receipt," I said without pausing. "You keep yours." In the mudroom, the cool tile met my heels with a relief I didn't know I was craving. Here were the things that had always told the truth. Scuffed boots, a shelf of light bulbs, the dog leash we kept even after the dog was gone because some habits prefer hope. I pushed the back door open. The night rushed in with its clean breath. He followed to the threshold, stopping where the house told him to stop. "You can't run the company without me," he said, soft, almost tender in his dread. "I already do," I replied. "Now I'll do it without explaining." He blinked, the slow confusion of someone who has never lived outside the applause. I felt almost sorry for him, almost. Then I remembered the sound of their laughter at my expense and found myself fresh out of charity. On the patio, a candle sputtered as if reconsidering fire. I kept walking, suitcase humming behind me like a small engine built for departure. He stayed at the doorway, held there by the only thing that ever truly contained him: consequence. From the driveway, I could still hear the low murmur of guests rearranging their faces into versions they could tell themselves later. I didn't need to rearrange mine. The truth fits me. I pressed the fob. The trunk lifted its mouth like a promise kept. The suitcase slid in with a satisfying thunk. He called my name one last time, the way a man calls a cab he hasn't paid for. I opened the driver's door and offered him what I owed, nothing, and what I still owned, words. "Close the door behind you," I said. "It's drafty when decency leaves. When they gather to watch you break, teach them how a hinge works." The hotel lobby greeted me with its late-night orchestra. Suitcase wheels, the hush of carpet-swallowing footsteps, a distant elevator bell keeping time for the restless. I chose a place with glass walls so the city could watch me back. I have always worked better when reminded that I am one small woman in a wide, bright grid, accountable to no one's fantasy and to everyone's reality. "Good evening," the clerk said with the practiced calm of someone who has seen every version of human drama arrive at midnight. "Do you need help with your bags?" "No, thank you," I said, and slid my ID across the counter like a key into a lock I had forgotten I owned. She tapped, smiled, handed me a folded map I wouldn't need. "Quiet floor?" I asked. "The quietest we have," she promised, and something in her tone, respect without pity, made me want to sleep for the first time in weeks. The room opened to a view of the city's silver bones. I set the suitcase on the stand, clicked the bathroom light, and let the mirror tell me what the evening had carved into my face. Not older, cleaner. There is a look we wear when we stop bargaining with our own worth. It looks like rest, even when we're awake. I undressed in method, folding the day into squares, skirt, blouse, apology I never offered. The shower steamed the window until the skyline blurred into possibility. I stood under the water long enough to rinse away names I had answered to that were not mine. On the vanity, soft white towels waited, monogrammed with initials that weren't mine and didn't try to be. I wrapped one around my hair and another around the life I was keeping for myself. In the mirror, I mouthed the sentences I would need tomorrow, the ones that make men uncomfortable because they are not written in apology. Freeze his access. Notice of separation. Emergency board session. Here are the receipts. My phone lit up with 2 messages. The first, my attorney. 8 a.m. Coffee will be strong. The second, a number with no name. A voice memo. I pressed play. Male voices, ice in glasses, paper shuffling. My husband's laugh, brighter than it had been at our table, followed by the phrase that names the dark, Project Gaslight. Then notes about creating a narrative, about her instability, about the new LLC mirroring the old brand to retain clients in the confusion. I sat on the edge of the bed, the towel tightening around my chest as if to keep something inside from coming out. Not tears. Inventory. I listened again, not because I needed to hurt twice, but because the law loves clarity. I forwarded the file to my attorney and to myself at a separate address I only ever use when the ground moves. Then I created a new folder on the hotel's little desk. Evidence, active. I typed a single line beneath it. You're not angry. You're archiving. I turned off the lamps one by one until only the city remained. Lights pricked into the night like pins holding a map in place. I slid under the sheets, cool against skin that remembered fire. The bed did not sag. The room did not tilt. My breathing found me. I didn't pray for him. I prayed for the strength to keep my voice as soft as my proof is hard. When the world finally quiets, listen for the part of you that never raised its voice and never had to. Morning came clean and businesslike. I dressed the way I argue, simple lines, no noise, nothing a man could point to and call distraction. Low heels, the navy dress that reads as authority in every light, hair pulled back so the facts could take the front. My attorney's office sits in a building that was once a bank. Marble floors, high ceilings, echoes that remind you money is just organized belief. She greeted me at the glass door with a smile that was not for show and a mug that meant to keep me upright. You didn't have to come this early, she said, but I'm glad you did. I needed the hour, I answered, before everyone starts pretending this is a misunderstanding. We spread the folders across her conference table like a quiet storm. Contracts I originated, board minutes I drafted, emails he forwarded with words added that changed meaning by half a mile. I slid her the voice memo. She listened without expression. The good ones save expression for judges. When it ended, she nodded once, the way you do for a diagnosis that doesn't surprise you. Here's our order of operations, she said, pen in hand. We file for temporary protective orders, communications, accounts, internal memos. We request an emergency board meeting. We notify clients of a routine compliance review with new security protocols. We freeze his access pending investigation. Will it hold? I asked. It doesn't need to hold forever, she said. It needs to hold until the truth catches up. We wrote the day like a list of instructions to the universe. She dictated, I refined, her paralegal typed with a speed that could cut through fog. Attach Exhibit A, she said. The slide about create instability. Judges respond to short words and bad intentions. I called my CFO. No preamble. We're initiating a compliance lockdown, I said. Vendor portals, CRM, signature authority, shift to me. Keep it quiet, but documented. Send the team a neutral message. System audit. Are you okay? She asked. I'm precise, I said. That's better. By 10, the filings were in motion. By 11, my phone buzzed with the first ripple of consequence. His text, a string of question marks, and then, inevitably, blame dressed as concern. You're being dramatic. This will hurt the company. Men like him always remember the company when they fear losing the throne. I typed back nothing. Silence is the only reply that can't be edited into their script. At noon, my attorney looked up from her screen. I have a friend in forensics, she said. We can mirror your systems today, create a clean timeline. If he's been in places he shouldn't, we'll see the footprints. Do it, I said. If there's mud, I want it bagged and labeled. We ate sandwiches over depositions from another life, 2 women chewing through procedure while the world rearranged itself outside the window. When I stood to leave, she put a hand over mine, brief as a blessing. You're not here to win a fight, she said. You're here to enact a truth. Down on the sidewalk, the city pressed on, indifferent and reliable. I breathed in and felt something unclench deep in the place where I store fear. This wasn't revenge. It was maintenance. The kind you do when a beam has been quietly rotting and you decide the house is worth saving. When the law meets a ledger, belief becomes structure. The first message came from a wife whose kindness I had learned to mistrust because she wore it like perfume. Stronger in company, gone by morning. Are you all right? She wrote, then added, if you need anything. I stared at the screen until the 3rd bubble appeared again. Actually, I think you should hear this. She sent a longer file. Voices I recognized by their smug rhythms. The clink of ice, the shuffling of papers, a cheap joke about how women love chaos as a hobby. Then the phrase again, bold as neon. Project Gaslight. Instructions followed, each uglier for pretending to be logistics. If she emails after 10, forward to me. If she pushes budget, mark it as emotional. We'll mirror the LLC name, close enough to confuse, different enough to defend. I didn't flinch. I pressed save. I forwarded. I numbered the files so the timeline would read like a children's book. 1, 2, 3. See how the truth can count. By late afternoon, more messages arrived, each carrying a piece of a puzzle that never should have been made. A vendor sent a screenshot of a new contract he'd been asked to sign. A contract bearing my brand's colors, with his signature mispositioned as if placed by someone who only knows paper from the top down. Felt wrong, he wrote. Figured you'd want eyes. A junior analyst, brave in a way that makes you proud to pay payroll, emailed from a private account. There's a Slack channel off the main grid, she said. They think hidden rooms are the same as locked doors. She attached exports, jokes, plans, dinner reservations named after projects, as if contempt were a menu item. She closed with a line I recognized from my younger self. I'm not afraid. I'm thorough. I made phone calls in my most careful voice. I asked for nothing. I received everything. People always know which way justice is leaning. They just want to be sure they won't be crushed if they help push. Around 6, my aunt called. She never asks for updates. She offers instructions disguised as blessings. Baby, she said, write it all down. God loves a record. I am, I said. Every sigh has a timestamp. There you go, she replied, as if I'd just told her the casserole was in the oven and the table set. When the devil tries to dance, you make him step on a receipt. When I hung up, I opened a new document titled, simply, Narrative. Not the one they were building for me, the one I would hand the judge, the board, the mirror. Each entry started with a date and a time, followed by a sentence stripped of drama until only gravity remained. He said. They planned. I documented. It read like a weather report for a storm that thought it invented rain. A final text blinked after dark, from an unknown number rooted in shame. I'm sorry, it said. I didn't stop him. Here's what I have. 3 photos. A whiteboard with arrows pointing from my logo to theirs. A bullet list. Destabilize, confuse, replace. The word replace circled twice, as if compulsion could make it true. I saved the photos and replied, thank you. Nothing more, because gratitude is safest without warmth when the sender has helped cause the cold. I closed the laptop, not because I was done, but because the day had finished confessing. The city lights blinked like eyes that refuse to close, lest they miss the moment justice rises to its feet. When whispers bring you bricks, build the wall that holds. They arrived at dawn. 3 cardboard boxes, ordinary as breakfast cereal, stamped with the anonymous courage of a copy shop. The concierge called up. "Ma'am, deliveries for you. Marked documents. Do you want them sent up?" "Yes," I said. "And could you please ask the gentleman to write his return address clearly?" She understood without me saying more. Women learn each other's shorthand long before men learn their own names. I pulled on the hotel robe, white, weighty, a little ridiculous on a woman planning a legal siege, and cleared the desk. When the bellman left, I tipped him and locked the latch like ritual. I slit the first box with a butter knife because I am done borrowing sharp things from men. Inside, printed email threads from his personal account to his business alias, subject lines that thought they could hide behind adjectives. Urgent, quick thought, draft. That last one always means lie I'm practicing. I laid them out chronologically, each page labeled with a sticky note like a museum plaque. Date, sender, intent. The second box held the kind of evidence that burns slow. Meeting agendas cribbed from my old templates, logos sketched by someone who doesn't understand that a brand is more than font and tone. It's a covenant. Someone had tried to recreate my covenant using clip art and arrogance. At the bottom, a manila folder with my maiden name misspelled. That detail steadied me. You cannot erase a woman you never bothered to spell correctly. I scanned the contents, a mocked-up website, an org chart with my role tucked into transition, as if I were a phase gently ending rather than a woman with tenure. I took a photo of the chart and sent it to my attorney with one line. They built a future on sand. The third box was the confession. Handwritten notes from a dinner I didn't attend. My name under a heading, Narrative Control. Bullets that read like instructions for a ghost story. She's inconsistent. She's emotional. She's distracted. Across the bottom, in his handwriting, I once taught our bank to accept the directive, document everything, even if we have to create it. For a moment, the room tilted the way a carousel does when it slows and memory pretends to be gravity. I placed both palms flat on the desk and breathed until the tilt passed. Then I took a pen. Have you been through something similar? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every comment. It's important for us to know we're not alone. And wrote in the margin, right under his instruction. I did. I photographed every page, front and back, and uploaded them to 3 separate clouds. Mine, my attorney's, and one with a name even I forget unless my hands are on a keyboard. Redundancy is a love language I reserve for truth. When I finished, I returned the papers to their boxes, not as they came, but as they deserved, sorted, numbered, artfully undeniable. I taped each lid shut and wrote across the top in black marker, block letters learned from women who label things so children can find home. Evidence, active. On the hotel's pad, I wrote again, evidence, closed. I placed that sheet in the desk drawer like a future I intended to arrive. Downstairs, I asked the concierge to store the boxes in the manager's safe. She didn't ask why. She asked for the case number to attach to the claim, which told me she'd done this before for others like me. We are everywhere. Quiet women with loud documents. I walked back to the elevator lighter than if I'd gone to the gym. Some people sweat to feel alive. I archive. When they try to manufacture your downfall, patent the proof. Courtrooms smell like paper and old wood, and the part of fear that's secretly respect. I wore the same navy dress from my morning with the lawyer. Consistency is its own testimony. He arrived in the suit I bought him for a promotion he didn't fully earn. He gave me the smile he gives auditors. I returned the face I reserve for math. The judge took the bench with the bored compassion of a person who knows both sides think they are the exception. My attorney rose, crisp as a new invoice. Your Honor, we seek immediate protective orders and temporary control orders for the company's accounts, communication channels, and brand assets on the basis of documented bad faith actions by respondent. His lawyer stood, all objection and cologne. This is a marital spat spilling into business, he said. Our client merely sought contingency planning due to petitioner's instability. Instability, the judge repeated, eyes sliding to me. I didn't speak. I handed my attorney the first exhibit. She projected it on the screen, a slide from their planning deck. At the top, in bold, create a narrative of instability. Underneath, sub-bullets with dates and assignments. The judge read, the way judges read when they've seen enough to resent the time it takes to see more. "Where did this come from?" his lawyer asked, voice climbing a social ladder that didn't exist here. "From respondents' circle," my attorney said. "Men sometimes confuse secrecy with silence. We don't." We moved through the exhibits like a guided tour of bad intentions. The voice memos, the email drafts, the mock LLC filings with names designed to catch stray clients, catch and keep. When the website mock-up appeared, the judge leaned forward. "This is close." "Intentionally, Your Honor," my attorney said. "Confusion is strategy." His lawyer pivoted to emotion. "She's vindictive," he tried. "She left a dinner party in a rage." "The rage," I said, finally standing, "was not mine. It was the moment realizing it could do better." A chuckle rippled behind us and died on the judge's glare. "Mr. He addressed my husband, voice level. "Did you or did you not direct your associates to create a narrative of instability regarding your spouse in order to assume control of company assets?" My husband opened his mouth and discovered the limits of eloquence. "It was a joke," he said, and in that instant, his entire campaign collapsed under the weight of its origin story. The judge nodded once, decisively. "Temporary protective orders granted. Respondents' access to company accounts, communications, and client portals is suspended pending further review. Petitioner is granted interim control to maintain operations. Any attempt to impersonate company assets or create confusingly similar entities will result in sanctions I'm confident you can imagine, and I am prepared to impose." Silence fell the way snow does, soft and then suddenly heavy. My attorney sat. I exhaled. He blinked at his lawyer, who avoided his eyes with professional skill. As we packed our papers, the bailiff handed me a copy of the order. It felt lighter than a wedding license and more binding than a vow. On the way out, a young clerk met my gaze with a look that women give each other when a door has finally swung the right way. On the courthouse steps, the sky looked undecided between rain and mercy. I chose both. I held the order behind my back to keep it dry, and I let the drizzle take the heat out of my cheeks. In rooms built for truth, jokes file no motions. By the time we left the courthouse, my team had already begun the audit. The CFO texted a single sentence that read like oxygen. "Access shifted, system stable." I sent back a thumbs up, not because I am casual, but because efficiency is a love language in crisis. I rode the elevator to our floor and watched my reflection in the steel. Same woman from last night, but with the paper armor of an order folded in her bag. The reception area smelled faintly of coffee and the nervous hope that offices emit when they sense the boss has brought a weather change. My name on the glass never looked louder. Inside, faces turned the way flowers do when the sun surprises them. I didn't make a speech. Speeches cost. Direction pays. "Compliance audit is live," I said. "If you get a request for anything unusual, forward it to legal and then to me. No panic. We're not rebuilding. We're removing rubble." We gathered in the conference room. I took my chair without apology and opened the spreadsheet that tells me who we are. Contracts, renewals, attrition, margins. Numbers greeted me like old colleagues who never pretended we weren't necessary. "First," I said, "raises that were deferred last quarter? Activate them." Eyes widened. Relief makes a specific sound, the kind you hear when people realize fairness didn't forget their names. Second, client calls at 2. I'll take the top 5. Everyone else, send the standard note, routine security enhancements, no service disruptions. I paused. Third, and this is important, nobody insults him. Not on Slack, not over coffee, not in a diary you think is private. We do not stain our record with the behavior we just defeated. The room breathed as one organism that had been bracing too long. My operations lead, 50, brilliant, allergic to nonsense, lifted a hand. "What do we call this internally?" she asked. "Maintenance," I said. "We found a leak and we fixed it." The forensics team arrived with tidy cases and an energy I like, curious without being hungry. They mirrored drives, logged IPs, traced access like cartographers, drawing rivers that exist whether or not you want to see where they lead. The map told the truth. Late-night logins, curious downloads, document versions that shifted away from accuracy, like a car drifting over the line. At 3, his text arrived. Angry now, the false tenderness burned off. You froze me out of my life's work. My thumbs hovered, then rested. I replied the only fact that mattered. Court order attached. I added nothing. Men who worship context hate to be served content. The bank manager called to confirm the freezes. Her voice held the delicate balance of discretion and gossip. These are temporary, yes? She asked. Temporary like a cast, I said. Long enough for the bone to set. By evening, the building's hum softened from alarm to purpose. We were still ourselves, but tighter, cleaner, less available to foolishness. I walked the floor the way a captain walks a deck after a storm, touching shoulders, catching eyes, asking about the small things that keep big things from failing. The weird printer, the creaky chair, the new hire who needed a mentor. Empires are built by people who notice loose screws before they become headlines. On my desk, I placed a fresh folder labeled Evidence Closed. Empty for now, ready on principle. I stood at the window and watched the city slide into its evening costume, more honest in shadow than at noon. My phone buzzed with a final message from an unknown number. A photo of him at a bar, hunched over his phone, the caption, "He's saying you'll regret this." I turned the phone face down and let the thought pass through me like a train that doesn't stop at this station. Freeze the chaos, and what's left is the work you were born to do. Morning lit the glass with that clean winter brightness that makes everything look recently invented. I arrived before most, not because I needed to prove ownership, but because the building deserves to see the person who keeps it fed. The elevator opened on our floor, quiet, humming, ready. My name on the door looked less like a claim and more like an accurate label. I brewed the coffee myself. 2 pots, strong and plain. Leaders who forget the coffee forget the people. I left a stack of fresh notebooks by the entrance, small unspoken invitations to write down what matters. By 8:30, the first arrivals came in 2s and 3s, eyes searching my face the way travelers study the sky before a flight. I gave them what skies owe: clarity. Good morning, I said. We're steady. We're working. Today is not a speech. It's a plan. Heads nodded. Bodies quieted. The office took its first long breath of the day. At 9, I called a stand-up in the conference room. No screens, no slides, just people and purpose. We're not rebuilding, I began. We're continuing. The noise out there does not pay your rent or fund your dreams. The work does. I lifted a folder. Raises went through. Promotions will be announced Friday. If you carried extra weight while others were busy auditioning for the mirror, I saw it. I wrote it down. I gave 3 promotions on the spot. Not grand announcements. Simple sentences that untangled shoulders and brightened spines. Then I pointed to the whiteboard and drew a line from operations to client trust. We win where we keep our promises boring, I said. Boring is a compliment in our business. Afterward, my ops lead slipped into my office, closed the door softly, and sat without ceremony. I stayed, she said. When the gossip got good, I stayed. I knew you'd choose the work. She handed me a short list labeled Quiet Heroes. I recognized every name and circled them all. Client calls began at 10. I took them one by one, each conversation an exercise in measured truth. We are conducting a compliance audit, I said. Service will not change. If you receive anything confusingly similar to our brand, forward it to me. We will handle the confusion. You focus on outcomes. People love being invited to stay in their lane when their lane is dignity. Between calls, I walked the floor. I fixed a jammed drawer with a gentle hip, adjusted a crooked frame, moved a plant closer to the light. The small chores of stewardship are the bones of an empire, quiet, load-bearing, unglamorous. Near the design pod, 2 juniors were whispering in the way new professionals do when rumor is fresher than experience. I leaned in. Advice, I said. Choose the version of events you'd be proud to repeat in a deposition. That one is almost always right. At lunch, I ate standing. A simple bowl of soup that tasted like my grandmother's kitchen. Salt, onion, something green that forgives everything but laziness. I answered 3 emails while the spoon cooled, sent 2 thank yous with specifics, and 1 apology for a delay that wasn't my fault, but existed on my watch. Empires are maintained by apologies given before they are demanded. Before the day ended, I unlocked my office drawer, took out the daily bank printouts, and ran my finger down the columns. The numbers met me like old friends who don't require a story to stay. Where once the ledger felt like proof of survival, it now felt like a map to somewhere I wanted to go. I turned off the overheads and left a single lamp on. The room looked honest in the warm light. No tricks, no angles, just work awaiting hands. Take your chair without noise, and the room will remember who it was built for. It came as I was approving a vendor renewal, an unknown number with the patience of a journalist who knows the story is already alive. I answered with my weekday voice. This is she. Ms. Alms, I'm with Ledger and Light, the woman said, naming a magazine that loves a comeback narrative until it realizes it's really a competence narrative. We're preparing a feature on founders who stabilized through internal sabotage. Off the record first, are you well? I liked her opening. Concern before curiosity. I'm steady, I said. We're profitable. People are paid. That's my weather report. On the record, she continued, how would you describe what happened? A maintenance event, I answered. We found corrosion behind a wall and replaced the studs. The house did not fall. She asked the expected questions. Timelines, orders, what changed, what didn't. I gave answers that could be repeated without rehearsal. When she reached for the soft center, feelings, betrayals, the night of the dinner, I told her the one detail that mattered. He called our marriage a joke in a room I cleaned, I said. I left the room. Everything after that is logistics. She laughed quietly, not at me, but with the relief of hearing a line that fits in a paragraph. May we photograph you? She asked. Your office? Your team? Nothing staged. Come Thursday, I said. Bring comfortable shoes. We walk. After the call, I drafted a memo to the team. Press visit Thursday. No heroics. Show the work. We are a company, not a montage. Then I called my aunt, because some good news needs to bounce off a voice that remembers you before you had language for ambition. A magazine's coming, I said. They always do, she replied. Flowers bloom, bees find them. Wear the navy dress. Stand like you own your bones. Thursday arrived with brisk air and a crew that moved carefully, respect in their footsteps. The photographer, a woman with salt in her hair and light in her pockets, asked to shoot my hands at the keyboard, my shoes under the desk, the smudge on my whiteboard where I erase too hard when the numbers impress me. People need to see work, she said, not just women posing with it. The writer observed without hovering. She noticed the way my staff laughed with their shoulders lowered, the way meetings ended on time, the way our door remained open because secrets make rooms smell musty. She asked if we had a mantra. Proof before posture, I said. She wrote it down and smiled like she had found a title. When they left, the office looked unchanged but felt documented, as if our ordinary had announced itself. I stood by the window and watched the crew hail a cab, boxes of gear stacked like tiny stages folding back into everyday life. My phone buzzed. Her thank you, her promise to send quotes for approval. Out of habit, I drafted a note to the team. You did well. You looked like yourselves. At home, I sat at the dining table, the same room, different air, and read client feedback that arrived unprompted. We trust you, one wrote. Your calm is contagious. I pinned that line to the top of my screen, not because I believe press clippings, but because I believe in earned adjectives. Later, I caught my reflection and laughed softly. Empires don't feel like headlines from the inside. They feel like lists you actually finish. When the world comes looking for a miracle, show them a calendar with boxes quietly checked. It was a Tuesday night, unromantic and useful. I was in the grocery store buying lemons and coffee filters, 2 items that keep life honest. The fluorescent lights hummed their indifferent hymn. I pushed the cart without hurry, enjoying the small democracy of aisles where everyone has to wait their turn. I saw him near the pasta, thinner, shoulders rounded from a weight he could finally feel because applause was no longer carrying it for him. He was comparing prices, the concentration of a man reintroduced to arithmetic. He noticed me the way a person hears their own name in a room full of strangers, head up, small flinch, a practiced smile smothered by surprise. I stopped a polite distance away, the kind of space you give to history when you've decided not to step back into it. He spoke first. "You look good," he said, then glanced at my basket as if groceries were a measure of wellness. "I am good," I replied. "Truth doesn't need embroidery." He gestured vaguely at the air between us. "I never meant to." He searched for a noun that wouldn't incriminate him. "Hurt you." "You meant to win," I said, "and you defined winning poorly." Silence gathered, not hostile, just accurate. Around us, a mother negotiated with a toddler about cereal choices. A teenager compared protein bars like they contained the future. Ordinary life kept moving, which is the mercy of it. He tried again. "We were a good team once." "We were a skillful illusion," I corrected. "Team implies mutuality." "We had choreography." He flinched, not at the word, but at the mirror it held. I picked up a bag of penne, checked the label, decided against it. He watched the movement like a metaphor. "People are saying things," he ventured. "About me." "People are compiling," I said. "About actions." I let the difference hang. "Do you ever miss us?" The question landed on the floor between us, unsteady on purpose. I considered. Not the sentiment, that had died long before the dinner, but the dignity of a real answer. "I miss who I thought you were when I didn't know enough to verify," I said. "I miss the woman who was willing to carry both our names while you enjoyed the view." He nodded. A small, painful acceptance that would have looked like growth if it had arrived earlier. He lifted a box of generic spaghetti, put it in his cart, took it out, put it back in. I recognized the choreography. Indecision, rehearsing, humility. I shifted my cart. "Take care," I offered. Not a blessing, not a curse, just a boundary. "You built something," he said. "Not quite admiration, not quite regret." "I maintained what I built," I corrected. "Then I built more." As I rolled away, he called my name once, softly, like asking a door if it might open itself. I didn't turn, not out of cruelty, but out of fidelity to the version of me that chose the hallway over the performance. At the end of the aisle, I paused to grab the good olive oil, the one on the top shelf that requires you to reach. I reached. The cashier later complimented my lemons. "They look like summer," she said. I smiled, paid, and carried my small bag into air that felt filtered of an old dust. Outside, the night had washed the cars in a thin, honest rain. I unlocked mine, slid the bag onto the passenger seat, and sat for a moment with my hands at rest on the wheel. No shaking, no triumph, just an even pulse and plans for dinner. You don't owe the past a conversation when the future is already speaking your name. I hosted again, months later, in the same dining room, under the same chandelier, with a different gravity. The table was set for 12 women, founders, managers, a teacher who runs her classroom like a startup of the soul. I laid linen the color of early morning and placed a small notebook at every seat. On the cover, "For what you want to remember." The centerpiece was not flowers, but a row of small potted herbs, things you can use, living quietly, fragrant when touched. I cooked the ribeye again, because reclamation sometimes tastes like repetition. Rosemary, butter, a pan that remembers every meal it has ever made. The room carried smoke and laughter that belonged, a contented low hum that doesn't seek permission to exist. When the doorbell rang, I opened to faces that glowed with the particular satisfaction of women who pay their own bills and still remember birthdays. We ate without speeches. Conversation moved like a good orchestra, patient, generous, never competing for the solo. A designer shared how she fired a client who paid late with compliments. The teacher told us about a student who learned to breathe through panic by naming 5 things in the room. "Window, chair, pencil, shoe, sky," she said. We all breathed easier. After the plates were cleared, I brought out a folder labeled Proofs and Praises. Inside, copies of performance reviews I had rewritten to reflect real contributions, notes of thanks from clients who didn't think CEOs read their emails, and small cards my team had left on my desk with 2 words I collect the way some people collect coins. You saw. I handed each woman a page that belonged to her, something I had noticed, recorded, saved. Recognition isn't salary, but it spends in a different way. Tears came, not dramatic, just grateful. The kind of tears that moisturize resolve. Why tonight? One asked, smiling like she already knew. Because the last dinner here ended with a lie, I said. I wanted the room to remember truth instead. We toasted, not with a speech, but with a sentence repeated around the table, to boring promises kept. Glass met glass like a gentle choir. In the kitchen, as I sliced the last of the steak for second helpings, the youngest guest approached. How did you not rage? She asked. When they tried to steal your name. I archived, I said. Then I acted. Rage burns, records build. She nodded, filed it under lessons schools should teach. Later we moved to the living room and turned down the lights until the chandelier was only suggestion. Someone put on a record. Someone else laughed the kind of laugh you hear in photographs. Outside, the city minded its business. Inside, we minded each other. When the night thinned, coats went on over shoulders already squared. At the door, I pressed each woman's hands and sent them home with a small pot of rosemary. For use, I said, not for show. The house, once a stage, felt like a sanctuary. After the last goodbye, I cleaned as I always do. Quietly, contentedly, without hurry. Dishes don't resent you when you wash them with gratitude. I wiped the table, straightened the chairs, and stood a moment in the doorway, watching the room hold the echo of good company, like a blessing that hadn't finished speaking. I turned off the chandelier and left the lamp on low. The air was honest. Repair the scene of your hurt with people who can't imagine applauding it. There is a drawer in my office that sticks unless you press gently on the left. Inside, an envelope labeled Evidence, closed. It contains the memos, the voice notes, the emails whose fonts tried to disguise their intent. I don't open it. I keep it the way sailors keep a life vest. Present, unnecessary. A reminder that preparedness and fear are not the same thing. Most days now are indistinguishable in the way stability hopes to be. I wake early, walk the route that lets me count the same 5 trees, brew coffee strong enough to hold a meeting. I arrive before the others and write on a small card the one sentence I want the day to remember. Today it was, prove it by doing it. Yesterday, be fair faster. The day before, no one drowns in details if the shore is clear. The company is louder with laughter and quieter with ego. Clients extend contracts not because we dazzled them with shorthand, but because we delivered on longhand promises. Our juniors present with spine. Our seniors mentor without theater. The bank accounts read like a hymn. Steady lines, honest totals, offerings given and received. Sometimes reporters call. They want the scene, the salt, the wound. I give them the ledger. Our Q3 margins improved when we returned to boring excellence, I say. They sigh, disappointed that justice doesn't always wear red lipstick and slam doors on cue. I will not let a camera teach me a new morality. He exists somewhere beyond my calendar. Word comes through the grapevine that he is trying harder at honesty, that he uses the phrase my part now, that he is learning to show up to verbs without looking for applause. Growth belongs to him. It does not require my attendance. On Fridays, my team gathers for 20 minutes to name one thing we finished. Not started, not promised, finished. We clap exactly once after each share. It sounds like a heartbeat that knows it is loved. I send them home early once a month with a note that says simply, because you did the math. And I, alone at the end of those days, take out my grandmother's ring and set it on the desk while I sign approvals. A small circle of stubborn metal, thinned by years and praying hands. I touch it and remember the women who built empires no one called empires, gardens, classrooms, kitchens, neighborhoods, circles of chairs where problem-solving sounded like laughter. The other day, the magazine arrived. My face was on the cover, which felt excessive and also properly documented. The headline was not revenge, it was arithmetic. Proof before posture. I smiled and slid the issue onto a shelf between binders labeled with years that changed without needing to be begged to. On my way out that evening, I turned off the lights and left the hallway lamp glowing like a lighthouse, licking the edges of dark. I locked the door, pressed gently on the left so the latch would catch, and felt the old satisfaction of mechanisms behaving. In the car, I didn't turn on the radio. I preferred the sound of an engine that starts because its parts are in conversation. Traffic was ordinary. The sky was obedient. Home was waiting the way homes should, unafraid of the key that fits them. He mocked our marriage at a luxury dinner, and I walked out. That is the headline the world keeps. I prefer the subhead no one prints. I built routines that built people, that built a company, that built a life. Some empires aren't crowned. They're quietly kept, and that's why they last. If this story gave you strength, help us by sharing, liking, and hitting the notification bell. We'd love to hear in the comments which part of the story you liked most. See you tomorrow.